We did some stuff on Wim Hof recently, and he was kind of the pioneer in all of that whole space. Yeah. And it's interesting, like seeing what he was able to do with the ice bath and his prep for it. He just became so used to hurting, like physically hurting. And he got so used to that. And I think that's a lot of it with all of this stuff and with CrossFit in general is you train, you get used to going into the pain cave. And all of a sudden your ability to dive further and further into pain, it continues to increase. And I think back to, what was the year that they did Murph at the games?
They did a partitioned year and an unpartitioned year. So it was like, I think 2015 and 2016, I think were the years. So maybe 14 and 16.
I think it was maybe the partition year, but who was it that somebody passed out? Like literally.
It was the girl from Australia.
Yeah.
Shoot, what's her name?
Was it
Kara Webb.
Kara Webb, yeah. So
Saunders now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get to here, do you think it's possible, like you had the Wim Hof thing, we have this autonomic nervous system control almost, and then you have the CrossFit side where you're able to go so far into the pain cave. This is totally a digression from what we're talking about. How much can we overcome those safety mechanisms in our body to continue to push ourselves?
Yeah, I think we see it a lot in endurance sports where people like come over the finish line and just crash, or like in Ironman and things like that, and they're like, their body's completely shut down the moment they cross the finish line, or even just feet away from the finish line, like they mismanage their fueling just a tiny bit or their energy level just a tiny bit, and they're in shambles. They literally can't.
The original marathon, he died after he ran the marathon.
Yeah, oh, that's a great story. I remember reading, so my wife was training for a half marathon in March, and I remember reading, like, why is this called a marathon? And then I dug into it. That was spinning. But I think, here's my thought. In endurance sport, there's really only like one or two fatigue signals that you're having to overcome, right? You have like your local tissue pain, and you have this whole body kind of metabolic high heart rate fatigue signal that you have to deal with. Maybe if it's really hot, you have some heat that you have to deal with. With CrossFit, especially if there's heavier barbells included, there are so many more signals that your body is monitoring that I don't think you can just mentally overcome them. Right? Yeah. There's the spinal bracing. There's your brain is constantly monitoring your ability to brace under load. And then you have that, but then you also have the fact that you're at really high respiration rates because you just ran 400 meters before, rode 500 meters at your 2K effort. And then now you're doing front rack walking lunges with 225 pounds. Like your brain is monitoring so many signals. Heat, you got all this extra metabolic heat production. You're producing a ton of CO2 because there's excess CO2 production when you're doing, loaded exercise, especially under high heart rates. Like, it's just, there's so many that are being monitored. I just don't think you can override that many. I think endurance athletes can train themselves to override the few fatigue signals that they're experiencing. But it's just like CrossFit's just like a barrage. It's like a shotgun of fatigue sensations. And you would have to be, we haven't gotten there yet. I'll put it like that. We haven't gotten there yet where someone is like capable of just ignoring all of that. I
think you're right, because it's totally different. I don't know if you could, like, your ability to brace is also going to be indicative of your ability to actually lift the weight. So if you try to bypass your safety mechanism of letting your bracing go, then you're going to fail anyways.
Yeah, and you just can't. Like, there are points where you just can't, which is why you referenced Murph. That's why Kara passed out in Murph, which is during the run, which was the endurance portion. I mean, at some point, if you're doing push-ups, your body just fails. Like, you can't just push up.
You can't just do another one, yeah.
People reach true muscular failure in CrossFit events.
Yeah.
Like, in endurance events, like, it's such a low load contraction, or, like there's such a small stimulus, they can reach some levels of like organ failure.
It's really interesting. There was a case study done years ago. I want to say 15 to 20 years ago, about this guy who was hiking with a group of kids. I want to say he was like a chaperone or something. Right. And something like a boulder or something fell, and he was the guy holding the boulder up to protect the kids. And I could be getting this story. I need to go back and find this, but he held it up so long that people were able to come in. The kids were saved. He let it go. They got him out of here. He held it so long that when it was all over, almost everything in his upper body was ruptured. Everything. He had avulsions everywhere, but he bypassed all those safety mechanisms to save a life. which is and you hear about these crazy stories of some mom lifting up the car to save her kid, like something interesting there that like there's something about human connection and that good, almost that altruistic factor of trying to save someone else, that you can bypass some of these things.
See, I don't think that'll happen in sport.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
It's a competitive, almost a little bit self-centered endeavor. Yes. One of the things I've found, we're talking on this point, one of the things I've found as I've gone further in my career, early on, it was about proving people wrong. I was the short guy in swimming. So I was like, I'm gonna be the one, you know what I mean? Like there was that aspect. And even when I switched to CrossFit, I had a chip on my shoulder and something to prove, and I wouldn't say I was bad about it. I'm not a mad, angry kind of guy. I'm more of a happy-go-lucky kind of joke guy. But the longer I've done this, the more I feel like I'm trying to do it for other people. But it's not the same as saving my kid from a car, from a lion or something like that. Like, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to activate that level. And
absolutely
the reverse killer instinct, right? It would be like the preservation instinct. There's no way I'm ever going to access that in a competitive endeavor because it's just not worth that to me. And maybe if there are my family's lives on the line or something, like that, maybe I could do it. But like, that's just not the case, especially in CrossFit, like it's $250,000 prize purse for the individuals. Like no one's going to go out there, and maybe some people are going to go out there and die, but there aren't very many people that are willing to go out there and die for $250,000. We're not at Hunger Games level.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't value this push-up as much as I value the life of my child. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Right. Like I really want to hit this lift, but I would lift 10 times to save my kid.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far into this, but we talked, you might actually know about the guy, the coach. He was a Russian coach, and he used to put trash bags over the ends of the barbells for all of his athletes. And he wouldn't tell them the weight that was on the bar. And they would walk in and he would say, okay, you're at 75%, hit this for 3. And
85% or something. Yeah.
Yeah. He'd actually have that on the bar. So there's some crazy stuff there, but